I think it was always inevitable that this would be how it ended. You know, they wouldn't be able to keep those patronages for Harry, in particular his military associations, because the sort of half-in, semi-commercial royal life that they kind of wanted just isn't possible. You know, it kind of breaches those expectations we have of the royal family, that they're not in it for money, that they are doing things because it's, you know, like charitable things, because it's kind of for the benefit of the country. You know, that's one of the big reasons I think they're popular, because of their charity work. So yeah, I think it was really inevitable, but I think that Harry and Meghan pushed really hard to try and keep some of those, because they, particularly Harry, it's very personal. I think Harry and Meghan have carved out quite a niche for themselves over in the US already. I think they are not going to be held back in any way by this. It's more the personal side, like you say, that they're clearly quite popular. There's a lot of people on their side. The moment I mention Harry or Meghan on Twitter, the kind of vitriol you get, that, you know, Harry and Meghan are so much better outside of the royal family, and the royal family are racist and they haven't supported them, and all these comments from what is loosely termed the Sussex squad. These are like these staunch defenders of Harry and Meghan. There is this very niche corner of Twitter that I don't often recommend you go into. But yeah, as soon as I mention them, it goes wild, and people, they've clearly got a lot of people in their corner. You know, people are rooting for them to do well and want them to be happy, because of course they clearly weren't, you know, in the royal family. That's why it ended up the way it did. But I think that they are going to be completely fine. The royal family have lost 2 stars. You know, they were so loved in the beginning. I'm even going to go that far to say that they were so popular. Like the turnout for their wedding, people loved this. You know, she was American, she was mixed race, she was an actress. It was just this new, fresh face, and she knew what she wanted. You know, fiercely independent, feminist, and it really seemed like a really good time for the royal family, that they could take these things forward with Meghan. But then obviously it all changed. So the royal family lose out, Harry and Meghan are winning. I think Harry loses out personally in terms of those military associations, but I think he's okay enough with that to know that his new path is also going to be beneficial. I think there's definitely tensions, and I think actually the Oprah interview is going to tell us the extent of those tensions. So it will be very, very interesting to see that when it eventually airs, because they said initially when they wanted to leave that they were going to kind of uphold the values of the monarchy and the Queen, and, you know, still do as much as they can in support of her. So if they go kind of all out in this interview and be like, this is what happened, so and so did this, they said that quite clearly says they have kind of, you know, split off from the royal family completely. They don't have a good relationship. I think it's more likely that there's just some sort of under the surface tensions, that, you know, things that haven't quite been resolved, that William and Charles were probably quite instrumental in that decision for Harry and Meghan to not be the half-in, half-out royals that they wanted to be, and that probably caused some tensions. You know, it's a family business. You can't get away from having those sort of arguments with your family. So yeah, I think that is just going to be a real eye-opener to the extent of those issues that are potentially there. But I definitely think there's been a few crosswords exchanged. Philip now in hospital, I'm sure, COVID times of course, but I'm sure it feels much better for family to be closer when things like this happen. So I'm sure there's that kind of feeling of, oh gosh, you know, we're so far away, something happens, it's an issue, what are we going to do? But then equally that moves on to things like Archie. Archie is now 18 months old. He hasn't spent much time with his paternal side of the family. You know, he's probably only seen the Queen and Prince Philip on a handful of occasions. He's probably only met his cousins, George, Charlotte and Louis, on a number of few occasions. So I think that's kind of sad when you think about it, that this issue has happened, that they weren't happy, they split off, and then it's also kind of Archie who's going to suffer. You know, he's going to grow up without that side of the family, and I'm sure it's fantastic for him to be close to Doria, who's obviously Meghan's mother, but there's, you know, families tend to be that two-sided thing, and that's one of the difficulties of, I guess, transatlantic families that, you know, a lot of long distance kind of couples and things like that have to deal with. But yeah, I think that's always the thing that occurs to me, that Archie's kind of growing up with that one big side of his family.